Hi, Christine. How are you doing on this beautiful Sunday? Little different setup for tonight. We're gonna, or not we're, me. I'm gonna stay out of the rabbit holes, for one. Two, we're not gonna bother Google at all. Whatever music plays, it plays. And let me find my right glasses, because it's helpful. Maybe. Better. Now, we'll just chat a little bit as it maybe gains a little bit more momentum, because I got a particular journey that I'm gonna show tonight. And Melissa, I was waiting for you. And tag your posse. We're gonna do something tonight. We're gonna do something what's called the alchemy of the self. So gather some people, because I think this is going to be very, very, very helpful for a lot of people, especially right now. And I know it was a beautiful day outside today. And as much as it was a beautiful day outside today, a lot of stuff's going on. So maybe gather your friends. Send out a post, invite them over. I got a special setup for tonight. You may see that. Lots of candles around me. I got the diffuser going with a very, very, very special essence. I've got some very particular music going. Not only here inside, but also still playing on the outside. And so we're sending music outside, and we have music inside with us here at the moment. And we're gonna play a little game. And it's the alchemy of the self. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it surrounds one word: surrender. What is surrender? How do we find surrender? Are we willing to surrender? Maybe it's just the last one, or maybe it's all of the above. And if you have a pen and a piece of paper, it might be a good idea as well. Oh, really? It's got closed captions coming on. I'll be darned. Maybe Facebook's done something with the technology that even I'm not aware of. That might make it easier. I mean, I have to really pronounce myself well if it's doing it automatically. If it is, you know what? Maybe there's a reason. No hazards in life. But alchemy of the self. This is where we're going to go on a little bit of a journey, or I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey. You may want to follow it. Maybe you won't. But if you do, you're going to maybe find a tool that I've used many, 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 many times over the years. Not only for myself, but for a great deal of many other people. And part of the surrender process, in order to surrender, is to reflect. And yes, reflect maybe back on the yesterdays, the yesteryears, to find where maybe some of the dismay is, or where maybe some of the actions that we do as a person today come from, how we react in certain situations, how we react with our emotions, how we react with everything, and how we get spun up into the turmoil of the mind space. And particularly right now, I'm feeling the heaviness. As much as I'm seeing beautiful outside and a wonderful day today, and I'm still feeling the heaviness out there. And I understand quite well, at least what I think it is. So we won't go into what I think it is, but I'm going to go into a journey. And I'm going to do this as I'm talking to you, because I've got a piece of paper. And on this piece of paper, there's already a number of things that were written on it by somebody else. I've read it once, so I know what's inside it already. I have a choice, and I can read it again, but I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to add on to it as we're going into this journey, because memories will always be. You can't get rid of your memories. It's impossible. But you can find a way to find some wisdom in them. All of it. As much as the good memories as it is the not so good memories. You all have those memories. We all do. We all have the yesterdays and the yesteryears. And we all have what is going on right now in a world that is stuck with a lot of uproar, a lot of chaos, a lot of goodness in many ways. Some of us are reaching out, providing outreach to help others. This is part of an alchemy. And that's why we're going into, as you saw the title tonight, it's about the alchemy of the self. So part of the self that I have is on this paper. So I'm just going to put this to the side for the moment and go into, maybe you have a question. I'm very open to any questions you may have, or maybe you're feeling something today that is a little off. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're thinking about tomorrow. And maybe it's bringing some fear, or maybe it's bringing a smile, because maybe you've planned to do something with the self tomorrow. Maybe a walk outside, or a bicycle ride, or a drive in your car. Maybe pick up the phone and phone somebody. Who knows? That's tomorrow. But where are you right now, in the here and now? Maybe that's the question to ask. I've had a number of conversations that started at pretty early this morning. And then I went out, did what I had to do. Drove around, picked up some errands, got a call from somebody that was in trouble. Not mentally or physically or something, no. Hot water tank broke. Couldn't get a plumber in. He's got water coming all over the place. So what do? I took a drive. Went out and fixed his hot water tank. Left him with a smile on a Sunday, where his Sunday started out with wet socks. Just a kind gesture. I had the time, and I offered it. And I went out and did what I had to do. And I'm feeling great about it, because it made somebody happy, and it took away a lot of stress. Which, upon all the other stress out there, you can imagine if your hot water tank broke right now and you wanted to have a hot bath. You had no hot water. How would it make you feel? And not only that, he's one man, and he's got lots of women around him. His wife, his daughters, and everything else. So he's kind of cornered, because they all like good showers. Yes, it was good of me, Christine. And this is part of the alchemy of the self, is doing good things and good deeds. It's part of the alchemy. It's part of knowing that you can. with common sense and applying common sense to the situation at hand. As the same thing comes down to that emotional self. If we stand back and reflect and apply some common sense to it, and I'm not saying we don't have common sense, but we're so in this 3-second attention span for a majority, especially the younger generations, that we don't know how to deal with this, and it takes us into a anxiety and panic and heart palpitations and choked emotions because we don't know how to speak. Or maybe we do know how to speak, but we're fearful of speaking. And this is where this reflection, standing back, stepping back, and taking the time with you. I mean, God knows we've got lots of time on our hands right now. You can't do a majority of the things that we're accustomed to doing. So we're adapting to this change in some ways. But I'm sure a great deal of us are not adapting to it because we're fearful of it, or we're fearful of the space that we're in, or maybe we're fearful of the person that we're sharing space with because it's become edgy, because we're maybe two people that don't know how to communicate and share emotions. So part of that alchemy of the self, this is the self-discovery. And I hopefully you have a lot of time on your hands right now to do some self-discovery. But sometimes in the process of the self-discovery, we also see the things that we're not happy with. Maybe the situation in life that we were living before all of this happened, we were already not happy with it. We were questioning it. We were questioning our choices, maybe questioning our work that we were doing, maybe questioning the relationships that we were in. And now we find that we're quarantined and stuck with all the things that we were questioning before, and we've got the quarantine and the panic and all the negativity that's strewing out about there. So, like I said, we're not going to go down to the rabbit holes. I'm not going to go into the controversies. We're going to stick with the self, and if you follow me, I invite you to take a pen and a piece of paper and just write some things down. Maybe just stick to the last 24 hours. Is there something in the last 24 hours that made you angry, upset, fearful, panicking, anxious, or all of the above? Maybe so. I invite you to take a piece of paper, write it down. If you want to keep it simple, just write down that emotion. What did you feel? Maybe it was an hour ago, maybe it was 6 hours ago, maybe it was yesterday. Let's not dig too far. What I have in my piece of paper, this is 2 years old. So I've added a few things onto it since then. But what was already in it came from the perspective of another person that I never accepted. But I held on to the paper for some unknown reason. I wonder why. Or maybe I just misplaced it and it popped up today, and that's how this topic is coming about the alchemy of the self. And so if you do this, send me a note, just tag or throw a thumbs up that you've taken a piece of paper and you've written something on it, because then that'll start the other process. In the midst of that, I'm going to read from one of my favorite authors, Dr. Scott Peck, and little meditations from the road. Very, very insightful book. Spontaneous. You can go to the day by day, or you can just randomize. Pick whatever it is. It's not going to change my glasses. I hate wearing glasses. I really do. Marriage is a truly cooperative, institution requiring great mutual contributions of care, time, and energy, but existing for the primary purpose of nurturing each of the participants for individual journeys towards his or her own individual peaks of spiritual growth. I'm going to repeat that because it's a long one. And I'll have a comment after that. So, as Dr. Scott Peck has said, marriage is a truly cooperative institution requiring great mutual contributions of care, time, and energy, but existing for the primary purpose of nurturing each of the participants for individual journeys towards his or her own individual peaks of spiritual growth. Very well said. And marriage is not just marriage with another person. I look at it as that we have also the marriage of the self. And who's the most important person to really start out with what love is with the self. So why not marry the self? Why not do a ceremony and marry yourself? Understand what those vows of marriage really are. For better, for worse, till death do us part. Marriage vow to the self. A lot of us are fearful of that commitment, that word, marriage. Because if you commit to it, then you understand what it really is. It's that union of you and the other, but also the union of the self. Because you've allowed your heart to offer love. You've offered your heart to love another. That union that we decide, and if we take it to the marriage of union before a church, if you wish, or before a spiritual leader or a shaman, whatever, that vow has a great deal of importance. We don't run when it gets tough. We can't do that. If you run away from the self, what happens? You end up being lost, filled with dismay, panic, heartache, brokenness, maybe even crushed. So how do we find surrender? We have to come back to clearing out the closet, going and understanding what's holding us back. What emotion is holding us back from being in the here and the now? What emotion's holding us back from having a smile of the self? Or a smile for another? So, if you haven't written, I did. And I want to show you what you can do in your confined spaces. If you've got something on your heart that's heavy, something in your mind that's spinning out of control, I want you to take a piece of paper, simple. Please do it. Try it. Take a piece of paper. Take a couple of pieces of paper. Write it out. You can't get the verbos coming? Write it out. Piece of paper. Pen. Shakespeare said the pen was mightier than the sword. Many great poets, many great theologians have said the same thing. The power of the hand, the power of creativity, the power of the extension of the emotion comes down and through this pen. Extend it. Put it into that piece of paper. Write it with everything that you're feeling. And then you got a couple of choices. Fold it up, put it into the drawer and leave it there. But you've already written something. And maybe you felt a little bit of a, and you expressed something on just a piece of paper. So why hold on to it? If it's something that you've already gained insight from, then you know what? Why don't you do like this? Take it up, rip it into little pieces of paper, like this, see? Just rip it up. Inside your space, make sure your windows are open, please. Because the ceremony of surrender is letting go. All of that hard effort that you put into writing that story, writing the details of what's holding you back, that visualization that you've put onto a piece of paper. And make sure you got something that's a little bit fireproof. And you know what we do? You say goodbye to it. Simple as that. You say goodbye to it. Because if you done this, what you're letting go of, you'll never be able to rewrite it the same way. And yes, letting go is hard at times. But why is it hard? You've made the choice to make it hard. You're holding on to something that's hurting you. Why hold on to it? Where is the justification that it's helping you? Because it's not. I just burned it. The memory is there. Can't get rid of the memory. But I just did an act of self-awareness, an act of self-compassion, an act of self-love, an act of surrender. The only way to let go is listen to the heart. The heart's hurting. Why hold on to it? Why? There's a word in English we call wallow. Why do you want to wallow into what's hurting you? If it's no longer in your presence and it's yesterday, why are we still holding on to it? What is it going to give you? And these are the questions to ask the self. What is it going to give you to spin over the same circling story all the time? Is it empowering you? It can, if you see the wisdom in it. The wisdom in it is maybe it's taught you something you do not want or do not accept in your life. That's a plus. And it may hurt to have gotten to that understanding. Because as creatures of habit, we get used to a routine. We get used to sometimes the assumption of what this routine is, or what the other is expecting. But we can't get into the assumption of what the other is expecting. We're not them. We can try to have compassion and understanding, but we also have to be able to have compassion and understanding towards the self. It all comes down to the very, very, very core of the self. That's the alchemy. The alchemy of your frequency starts with you. And if you allow the frequencies that are of the negative, the frequencies that are of the hurt, then you're destroying your frequency. You're lowering your frequency. To get to the heart, you have to increase that frequency. And that means we have to do the work. And part of doing the work is the inventory, the reflection. Yes, looking back into the past, especially if that's what's holding you back. If it's what's creating fear because of something in the past, then step back and Analyze it, but don't analyze it. Analyzation is a simple tool. Don't let it spin out of control. The simplest way is take a pen and piece of paper, your journal. I know a lot of people keep journals, and think about this. That journal is always there. You know where it is. You've written the story. You've written maybe an idea, and then you close it up and you put it away. Why? Why are you holding on to it? Take what is good from that. Learn. See the wisdom. See again how to create your boundaries, your limits. And you're not going to ever get to the perfection of that. It's a constant process. You're tending your own garden. To tend a garden of love, you have to start by tending the garden of love with the self, in all acceptance of who you are, not into what you've been led to believe that you should be. Come back to the self. And the easiest way to come back to the self is look yourself in the eyes. Seriously, look at yourself in the eyes with the same compassion that you can show to maybe a child. Why not show it to yourself? It's not hard. Why are we so fearful to have compassion for the self at times? Are we afraid of the emotion? Maybe we don't like the emotion. I cry doesn't mean I like it, but I cry because it helps me let go. It allows me to expulse what I don't want anymore. I detoxify myself. Am I going to forget about it? Like I say, the memory is always there. But what I have forgotten about is I gave back what doesn't belong to me. That piece of paper that I just burnt was written by somebody else in the perspective of a situation that I was going through that was very hard. And they gave me 3 things that they listed I should do. I read it, I looked at it, and I said, no. And I folded it up, and it sat somewhere in my computer room for the last almost 2 years. Coming through doing a couple of things today, I came across that piece of paper. And the best way I could show you is to visually show you one of the most powerful tools of all. What you have in your hands. And using your hand to express it. The greatest psychologist and psychiatrist in the world is that of the self. You don't need the psychologist and the psychiatrist to already affirm what you already know of the self. We get caught up in the machine of trying to find somebody to have the answer for us that we already have the answer inside of us. We're just fearful of embracing our own answer, or embracing that choice that we know we need to make, but we don't do. Because we feel obligated for whatever reason. But the only obligation that we have at the first of the day is the obligation to the self. Then if we have children, we have that obligation to our children, to teach them, to nurture them, to show them, to love them, to care for them, to educate them, to show them from our own past errors, our own past mistakes. Don't do this. But we also have to be able to accept that they're free. And that they may, even though we've said don't do this, they may end up doing it. I look back at what my mother said to me and how many times, don't do it. Why did I go out and do it? Because I wanted to find out for myself. Darn thing. Technology. You know, hold on a second here. Now this is... That aspect of the self, the self-awareness, the self-love that we can give is there all the time. All the time. We just have to grasp it. We have to understand what that love is. That love is letting others voluntarily evolve, and that includes the self. Voluntarily evolve. Not evolve because the way the system has said it to us, the way that people have told us how to do it, or the way that the education, whatever. And thank you for saying that, Christine. I am a rebel. I am a rebel. Everybody is a rebel. But grasp it. Use it as the empowerment to stand up for what you believe in. For what you truly, 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 truly believe in. Even if it's an act of love of another and you truly believe in it with all heart, if the other has made a choice to move on or whatever has happened, the hardest thing about love is letting go. But if we understand letting go is also through love, that we're letting them evolve, voluntarily evolve. It's a catchphrase, but repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Write it on a piece of paper, stick it on an affirmation, put it on your mirror. Let others voluntarily evolve. We'll find out maybe we're more controlling, that we're less of wanting another to be something that they can't be. So if we want them so much to be this way, maybe step back and reflect. Why? Why do we want them to be something that they're not? Empowering somebody is helping them through their weaknesses, helping them to understand their weaknesses so that they can empower the self. Showing them another way, not forcing another way. Not saying, this is the way. Show them by example. Allow them to have the freedom of choice. And that freedom of choice comes right down to everything. If it's in the relationship that we're in with somebody else, and that freedom of choice means that the other has decided to move on, it may hurt. Well, no, it not may hurt, it will hurt if you truly love the person. And I well know what I'm talking about. That's the hardest thing to do. But what's even harder is coming back to me, because I've fallen into a rabbit hole of another. And I got to get myself out of that rabbit hole. So one of the most powerful tools that I've ever used is creativity. Whether it was writing on a piece of paper, painting, building something, I've allowed myself to take a little bit of that away. Is it going to go away? I can't say that. I can't guarantee that. But what I can say is that if you really embrace the self and you really do the work with the self, you'll walk stronger. You'll feel stronger. And if you nourish yourself with the right foods, not just what you're putting in your mouth, but with everything around you, it's nourishment. Your environment is nourishment. What you look at is nourishment. What you read, listen to, music, noise. Even noise is nourishment. You know why it's nourishment? Because it's bad nourishment. And we're reacting against it. We're stressing. Undue stresses that we don't have in a natural state. In the true natural state of the alchemy of the self, We're in harmony with the nature. We're in harmony with our environment. And we still have our challenges. It's part of life. Living in frequent evolution. Yeah, you know what? Life, living in frequent evolution. I know I repeat that a lot. But I've seen where it makes changes when we come to grasp it. And then especially with what's going on right now in this quarantine, in the negativity, in the panic, in the aggressivity. The more that we as individuals can come back to that self, even with our hurt, it empowers us to maybe step up a little bit and say, you know what? Slow down to somebody. You have the right to be able to say to somebody when they're in that act of aggressivity, even if it's towards somebody else, to say something. Don't go into the conflict. The verbos being used can maybe save the moment. That's the way I look at it. No need for somebody to be belittling somebody else, or degrading somebody else, or being with harshness. The only one time that I ever accepted harshness, really, when I come to understand it today with my parents or with anybody, was when I was in a moment of danger, or I was going to do something that was of a stupidity that would have put me into danger. Then you know what? I accept they had the right to be forceful, even if it was discipline. If it was a clap across the side of the head, my mother would say, you know, wake up, then that's what it took. But we can't do that today, because if we clack somebody on the side of the head, we go to jail. Sometimes we need a clack on the side of the head. I'm sorry. If somebody is being that aggressive into a situation, I, for one, this is me, I can't let it go. That's me. Because I find that it doesn't need to be. And maybe if I did interact, maybe it stops something else that could have been worse. The reason I'm saying this a little bit, because I saw something today that I interacted into, and it was actually in a lineup for a grocery store. Like, there was this one gent that was being so arrogant and so disrespectful that I had music on, my windows were rolling down, and I could hear how disrespectful he was being to others. I stopped my car, I got out of the car, I went over and I said, excuse me, could you please just reflect? Just reflect on the way that you are right now in the moment. And I could see his fist grimping up. But all of a sudden something caught, because everybody else was looking. And I said, that's all I want you to do. Just reflect, please. And I went back in my car, listened to my music, and drove off. That's me. I'm not saying that's what I expect anybody else to do. I'm just saying that's what I did. And it felt good. But there was a moment that, you know what? I felt like I could have gotten my face slapped. So I took the risk. This comes back to the self. Choices. Some of them are risky. It's an unknown. It's an unknown path. But if we've done it with heart and good intent and good thought, then chances are the outcome is good. Very highly. What do you think about that? The alchemy of the self. Starts with you. Starts with me. starts with the choices. And a lot of the choices that we have at hand. I won't go into all the choices. I think each and every one of you are faced with a deal of choices before you. How you're going to choose them, it's going to depend on how much heart you put into it. Yeah, it could have got me in trouble though, Christine, honestly. I don't suggest doing it. That was me. It had nothing to do with bravery though. Honestly, when I reflect back at it, I just said no. It's not acceptable. And besides that, it was disruptive to the music that I was listening to. Yeah. Can you imagine you're driving by? I'm not driving by, 15-kilometer zone. So I'm taking my time. There's people crisscrossing. Okay, and that's got my windows down, and that's the only thing I could hear interrupting the music. So it irked me. It might have been a little bit of bravery, but I think it was more that it irked me and that no, I'm going to say something about it. So I did. It worked out for the better, hopefully. He wasn't doing what he was doing when I drove off anyways. So I'll have to leave it at that. But coming back to this alchemy of the self, a lot of us struggle with it. A lot of us struggle with our spirituality. We struggle with our emotions. We struggle with our yesterdays. Yes, we struggle with them. But if you put effort into it, you'll struggle less with it. You'll find ways to find the wisdom in it. You'll find ways to find the choices in it. That's where it goes. Right back to you. So what say you? Smiles or frowns? Smiles only take 10 muscles. Frowns take all 45. And it makes you look older. It gives you more wrinkles. And depletes you of your energy. But a smile gives you energy. It's uplifting. And it's lifting. Uplifting and lifting. Because you can lift somebody else up by being in a mode of just being uplifted. Stand strong. Stay calm. Look at all of these nice little short phrases. Smile to you. Smile to another. Love yourself. Or just love, if you want to keep it simple. Go back into what it really means for you. But start with the self first. Yeah, smiles all the way. Christine, if anybody's tuned in and you see Christine here, please, unbelievable lady. If you haven't met her in person, I wholeheartedly, when the time comes, you got to go see her for a reading. Because if you're not smiling coming in, her smile's going to wear on you. And you're going to have a smile. You just can't help but not smile. Seriously. You're a beautiful lady, Christine. Keep it up. Keep it going. The world needs a lot more people like you. It really does. And that's the dominoes. Because the more that we step out of it, the more we step out of the box, the more we step out of the dogmas, the more we step out of the stigmas, the more we step out of the broken systems, the more that we step forward with love. And I said that in a whole phrase and one breath. Not bad. Runes. Let's see what the runes say for tonight for the alchemy of the self. I just love this music. I like the other stuff too. Last night it was a little different. You know, if you tuned in last night to the 9 p.m., it was just randomness. It wasn't just randomness. And a beautiful soul that was with me, Dominic. Beautiful, 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 beautiful soul. But he has his moments, like we all do. Grief. From the healing runes, that's the first stone. Grief. No comments. I'll leave it with you. Maybe just think about what grief is for you. And while you're thinking about it, why don't you write it down? Try it. Because you know what? And this one is very fitting. Extremely fitting. Part of the grieving process is letting go, the surrender. That's also grieving. Because what's brought us grief, if we keep holding on to it, it destroys us. It's self-sabotage. So to understand what the grief is, where the grief has come from, that allows us to set the boundary and the limit of what that grief was. Because we don't want it. And that means we shouldn't accept it coming into our life. It's a choice to make. And if you do that, then the healing runes is saying, embrace yourself with love. If you allow grieving to take place, you're allowing the love of the self to help heal. Don't hold back from your grieving. Grieve. Even if you're grieving for 10 years, sometimes you will. I miss my father. What can I do? It's part of the grievance. And at times I grieve. Sometimes I'm more emotional than others. I miss my mother. But I've come to accept it. I don't reflect on what I could have done. I reflect on what was done and where I am now, in the here and now. And the memories, they are what they are. Even if they bring anger. Even if they bring anger. Because if it's bringing anger forward, your intuition is telling you something. It's time to let go of the shit. Seriously. It's time to let go of it. Do the work. Because nobody's going to do the work for you. Absolutely not. I can offer lots of wonderful tools. People like Christine can offer wonderful tools. Clarity offers wonderful tools. Dominic, Float House offers wonderful tools. Local restaurants, local shops, they offer wonderful tools for a better way of life. But you have to do the work. Because they just have opening and offerings. Choose what works for you. Choose what brings positivity into your life. Doesn't mean you're going to run away from the negativity. Be aware of it. And if there is something you have in your power, in your possession, that you can be helpful to change, or helping that change, don't walk away from it. Why not offer a hand? A smile. That's all it takes. The alchemy of the self. So try it. Want a way to release it? write it out, set a ceremony, set space, burn it. And if you really want to hold on to it, I invite you to try and write it exactly word for word that you wrote the first time. Because I'll guarantee you, unless you have the perfect, absolute memory, you'll never write it the same way. And even if you do, it won't have the same emotion. Because you let go a little bit of it the first time around. And if you have to let go a little bit by a thread, by a thread, by a thread, keep doing it. The alchemy of the self. So, thank you for joining in for another wonderful evening of the Chronicles. A little heart fire, a little heart space, sharing in story. But most of all, for being you. Even if I've never seen you in person, just be you. Because if you've joined in and stuck around for this, maybe I had something to say that made sense. And if it didn't, you listened to me ramble. How's that? So once again, thank you for joining in the Sunday Heartfire Chronicles. Me and the candles. And I want you to have pleasant dreams. I'm sure you will. If you decide, just speak to yourself. So, good night, a bientôt, arrivederci, ciao. Sleep well, everybody.